At Thanksgiving, my sister said I was only lucky. She had no idea I was actually her boss. The next day, her paycheck bounced and her entire career fell apart. Can you imagine sitting across the Thanksgiving table from your own sister, who's currently trashing your entire life's work, completely oblivious to the fact that you're about to deliver the most shocking blow of her career? That night, as she smugly called me lucky in front of our entire family, I silently reached for my phone and, with an almost unnerving calm, ended her employment right then and there. For days later, her direct deposit bounced. Turns out, luck had absolutely nothing to do with it. Let me tell you, this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision. This has been brewing for years, a simmering pot of resentment and disappointment. I'm 34, my sister Emily is 30. We grew up in a perfectly normal, middle-class, suburban home. Nothing fancy, nothing terrible. Our parents, both accountants, preached education and hard work, the standard stuff. They believed if we focused and put in the effort, success would follow. Solid advice, in theory. But Emily and I, well, we were just wired differently. Even as kids, it was clear. I was the one saving birthday money, mowing lawns to buy a better bike. Emily blew her allowance the day she got it, then begged our parents for more. In high school, I was devouring investment books. She was flipping through celebrity gossip magazines. I worked part-time jobs all through college. She focused on her social life and barely scraped by with a passing GPA. Now, I'm not saying any of this to make myself sound perfect. Far from it. I just had different priorities. I craved financial security. I wanted to build something. Emily, she just wanted to have fun and figure things out later. Neither approach is inherently wrong, but let me tell you, they lead to vastly different outcomes. After college, I dove into renewable energy consulting. Sounds a bit dry, I know, but the work was fascinating. I helped companies transition to solar and wind, handling the financial analysis and project management. The industry was booming, and I was good at it. Within 4 years, I was managing big clients and pulling in a six-figure salary. But there's a problem when you work for someone else. There's a ceiling. You can only go so far before you're just making them rich, not yourself. I watched my boss buy his third vacation property while I got a 4% raise that barely covered inflation. I was generating millions in sales for the company and getting a tiny fraction in return. The numbers just didn't add up. So, at 27, I took a massive leap, one that my entire family thought was absolutely insane. I quit my comfortable corporate job to start my own renewable energy consulting business. My old manager actually laughed when I handed him my notice. He promised I'd be back begging for my old job within a year. Said the market was too competitive, that I didn't have the contacts to succeed. His dismissive attitude, honestly, was almost as good a motivator as my own drive. That first year, brutal. I worked 80-hour weeks, minimum. Ramen noodles became a staple. I lost so much sleep, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. I maxed out 2 credit cards just to keep the business afloat while I built my client base. There were nights I sat at my laptop until 2 a.m., truly questioning if everyone who doubted me had been right. My parents were supportive, but you could see the concern in their eyes. They'd see me at family gatherings, exhausted and wired, and I knew they were second-guessing their encouragement. My dad would gently suggest there was no shame in returning to a corporate job if things didn't work out. He meant well, but it felt like he was already preparing for my defeat. Emily, she thought I was a total idiot for giving up a steady paycheck. She told anyone who would listen that I would fail and crawl back to corporate life within 7 months. She'd crack jokes at family events about me needing to apply for a job with her. Oh, the supportive sister energy was palpable. About 8 months in, I hit my lowest point. My company account had exactly $300, and a crucial proposal was due in 3 days. I hadn't paid myself in 4 months. I was living on credit cards and the last of my savings, sitting in my barely affordable apartment, genuinely considering if I should just give up and start sending out resumes. But then, that proposal landed. A mid-sized manufacturing company looking to go solar. It wasn't huge, about $85,000, but it was enough to keep me going. More importantly, they connected me with 4 other companies in their network. Those referrals led to more referrals. Suddenly, I had momentum. Spoiler alert, I did not fail. By year 2, I'd landed 4 major contracts. By year 3, I was hiring staff and turning down work because we were at capacity. By year 5, which is now, I'm running a business with 25 employees, generating over $8 million in sales annually, and personally clearing over $420,000 after expenses and payroll. I still drive the same Honda Civic I bought used 5 years ago. I live in a nice, but modest house. I don't wear fancy clothes or flash my money around. To look at me, you'd just think I was a regular guy with a regular job, and that's exactly how I like it. The people who truly matter know what I've built. Everyone else, they can think whatever they want. Emily, on the other hand, has had 8 different jobs in the last 7 years. She went to college for communications because it seemed easy. She graduated with a 2.8 GPA and no real plan. Since then, she's worked retail, restaurants, an insurance office, a gym, a marketing company that fired her after 4 months, and a few other places I honestly can't even remember. She rarely lasts more than a year anywhere. There's always an excuse. The job isn't for her. Her boss is terrible. She deserves more. 2 years ago, Emily showed up at my house on a Tuesday night, crying. She'd just been fired from her latest job for being late too often. She needed money for rent, or she'd be evicted. She promised to pay me back. She swore this was the wake-up call she needed to get her life together. I gave her the money, not as a loan. I knew I'd never see it again, but because she was my sister and I didn't want her homeless. I also made it clear I couldn't keep bailing her out. She needed to sort her life out. She nodded, thanked me, and promised she would. The very next week, she bought a new iPhone. Priorities, right? About 7 months later, she called, asking if I had any openings at my company. She was working retail again and hated it. She wanted something with more income, better perks. She envisioned herself in an office, feeling professional and important. This is probably where I should have just said no. Every rational bone in my body screamed that this was a terrible idea. Don't mix family and business. Don't hire someone with her professional history. Just don't do it. But she's my sister. And my mom had been subtly hinting that it would be so nice if I could help Emily out. Emily herself sounded genuinely sincere about wanting to turn things around. So, against my better judgment, I created a position for her. I didn't give her anything critical or high-level. I wasn't stupid. I made her a client services coordinator, a fancy title for someone who answers emails, schedules meetings, handles basic admin, and organizes our customer contacts. It was an entry-level job, paid $45,000 a year with benefits. Good money for the work, honestly, more than she'd ever made anywhere else. Before her first day, I sat her down and laid out clear expectations. Show up on time. Respond to emails within 24 hours. Keep the client database updated. Communicate professionally. Basic stuff, things any effective employee should do. She nodded, said she understood, and promised not to let me down. For the first month, she was great. Showed up early, stayed late, seemed eager to learn. I actually started to wonder if I'd been wrong to doubt her. Maybe she had finally turned things around. Maybe working for family would be the motivation she needed. Then month 2 arrived, and the cracks started to show. She began coming in late. 5, 10 minutes at first, which I tolerated. I'm not a tyrant. But then it was 15 minutes, then 30, then an hour. When I talked to her about it, she always had an excuse. Traffic was awful. Her alarm didn't go off. She wasn't feeling well. Never her fault. Always some external issue beyond her control. Her work quality plummeted too. Emails sat unanswered for days. Client meetings were scheduled at the wrong times. The database became a jumbled mess of outdated info and missing entries. My office manager, Sophia, who's been with me since year 1 and never complains unless there's a real problem, came to me 3 times in 1 month about Emily's performance. Then came the truly infuriating incident. Emily scheduled an important presentation with a potential client at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. This client had flown in from Nevada just for this meeting. At 1:45 p.m., I got a call from the front desk. The conference room wasn't set up, and Emily wasn't in the office. Turns out, she'd gone to lunch at noon and never returned. No call, no text, just disappeared. I later found out she'd met some friends at the restaurant and decided to hang out instead of coming back to work. She finally strolled in at 4 p.m., acting like nothing had happened. I had to personally apologize to the client and reschedule their flight. We eventually won the contract, but only because I ate a portion of our fees to compensate for the sheer lack of professionalism. That single episode cost me about $18,000 in lost revenue, and almost ruined a relationship with a client who could have brought us years of repeat business. When I confronted Emily, she said she'd lost track of time and didn't think it was a big deal because I was there to handle the meeting anyway. Not a big deal. A client flew across 3 states for a meeting she booked, then abandoned, and she didn't think it was a big deal. Another time, she sent an email to a prospective client with so many typos and grammatical errors that they actually called me to ask if we were a legitimate business. The email literally said, "We look forward to doing business with your company." I had to explain we were training a new employee, and it wasn't reflective of our usual standards. Emily had been working for me for 4 months by then. This wasn't a new employee error. This was just lazy work. I took Emily aside for a talk, not as her brother, but as her boss. I told her the lateness had to stop and her work quality needed to improve. She immediately got defensive, said I was being too harsh, said I didn't understand how demanding the work was. She even suggested Sophia was after her because Sophia was jealous of Emily's status as the boss's sister. That last part nearly made me laugh out loud. Sophia had no reason to be jealous of anyone. She was my right hand, earning $95,000 a year plus bonuses, and had actual stock in the company. But Emily needed someone to blame, and Sophia was an easy target. I issued Emily a formal written warning, documented everything, and told her if things didn't change within 30 days, we'd have to reevaluate her employment. She cried, promised to do better, and things improved for about 2 weeks before sliding back into the old patterns. The thing that really got to me wasn't even her awful performance. It was her attitude in the office. She constantly complained about how hard she had to work, meanwhile taking hour-long lunches and spending half the day on her phone. She'd complain about being underpaid, even though she was earning more than market rate for her job and experience level. She'd make comments about how easy it was for me as the owner, as if I just sat around counting money all day instead of working my tail off to keep everything running smoothly. My other employees started to notice. I'd overhear them grumbling about Emily getting preferential treatment because she was family, and they were right. Any other employee with her track record would have been fired months ago, but I kept giving her chances because of our bond. It was just like I'd been warned before I hired her. The final straw came about 3 months ago, just before Thanksgiving. A huge client, a commercial real estate company planning to convert 5 buildings to solar panels, a likely $2.5 million deal over 2 years, approached Emily with some questions about our proposal timeline. Simple stuff. When could we start? Payment plans, if we could use their preferred vendors. Emily's job was to relay those questions to the right people on my team, get answers, and craft a professional response. Basic coordination work, exactly why I hired her. She never responded to the email. Never did anything. The client called back a week later, slightly irritated. Still no reaction from Emily. They followed up again, this time directly with me, and they were livid. They were ready to walk away and take their $2.5 million project elsewhere. I only found out when the client called me personally, which should never have happened. When I confronted Emily, she said she'd been preoccupied with other tasks and had forgotten. Forgotten about a $2.5 million client. Forgotten to do the fundamental task I paid her $45,000 a year to do. I spent 4 hours on the phone personally smoothing things over with that client, apologizing for our lack of communication and offering them a discount to compensate for the inconvenience. I barely avoided losing the contract, but the damage to our reputation had already been done. They'd remember how my company failed to respond to simple communications in a timely fashion. I should have fired her right then. But Thanksgiving was 3 weeks away. My mom had been asking if Emily and I were both coming to dinner. She was ecstatic that we were working together. She kept telling me how happy she was that I was helping my sister advance her career. I just couldn't bring myself to fire Emily right before the holidays and spoil my mother's Thanksgiving. So, I decided to wait until after. I'd enjoy the holiday, then have a professional conversation with Emily the next week about how things weren't working out. I'd offer her a severance package, 2 months' pay, to ease her transition and wish her well. Clean, professional, even kind. Then Thanksgiving dinner happened. My entire family was there. My parents, Emily and her boyfriend David, my aunt and uncle, 2 cousins. A standard family gathering. Mom had gone all out on the food. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, 3 types of pie, the works. Everyone was in great spirits, chatting and joking. After we finished eating, we sat around the table in that post-meal haze where you're too full to move, but too comfortable to leave. Someone asked me how my business was going, just making conversation. I gave my typical response. Business was good. We'd had a successful year. I was thankful for our clients and team. Nothing extravagant, just nice dinner talk. Then Emily decided to chime in. Yeah, well, he got lucky. That's all it is. The table went silent. I looked at her, assuming I'd misheard, or she was joking. But she had this smug smile on her face, the kind you wear when you think you're about to drop some brilliant truth bomb. What do you mean? My father said, puzzled. Emily leaned back in her chair, preparing for her grand monologue. I mean, he acts like he's some brilliant businessman, but he just got lucky with timing. The renewable energy boom happened right when he started his company. He rode the wave. Anyone could have done what he did if they'd been in the right place at the right time. My uncle raised an eyebrow, but stayed silent. My mother looked visibly uncomfortable. Emily's boyfriend, David, was nodding along, as if she were imparting profound wisdom. I just waited, wondering if she would dig the hole any deeper. Oh, she did. Honestly, if you look at it objectively, he's not even that smart about business, she said, now on a roll, clearly loving her audience. Like, his whole strategy is just undercutting competitors on price. That's not genius. That's basic. A trained monkey could do what he does. Emily, my mother began, but Emily waved her away. No, it's true. Everyone acts like he's this amazing success story, but it's literally just luck. Right time, right industry, right circumstances. He works hard, sure, but so do lots of people who aren't successful. The difference is, he got lucky. She looked squarely at me as she said that last sentence, as if daring me to disagree. My cousins were staring at their dishes, clearly uneasy. My father looked like he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. My aunt was giving Emily the look you give someone who has just insulted the host. But I didn't get angry. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue. I just smiled and nodded. You might be right, I said gently. Luck definitely played a role. Emily seemed almost disappointed that I didn't take the bait. She'd clearly wanted a fight, wanted to put me on the defensive so she could make her point about how I take myself too seriously, or whatever narrative she'd constructed in her head. Exactly, she said, feeling vindicated. People need to stop acting like he's special. He just got lucky. That's the truth. Well, my uncle said blandly, trying to change the subject. Lucky or not, it's working out well for him. For now, Emily chirped. But luck runs out eventually. Then we'll see how successful he really is. My mother suggested we move to the living room for pie. Everyone practically leapt at the chance to escape the awkward conversation. As everyone stood up from the table, I subtly pulled out my phone, pretending to check texts. I navigated to my company's HR management software. We use a system that lets me manage payroll, benefits, and scheduling remotely. Very convenient, especially in situations like these. I found Emily's employee profile, clicked on the employment status option, changed it from active to terminated, entered today's date as the end date, and typed a short note in the termination reason field. Performance concerns and breach of company conduct policy. The app prompted me to confirm the termination. I clicked yes. It asked if I wanted to process any final payments or severance. I clicked no. She'd receive her last paycheck for hours worked, but that was it. No severance package, no 2 months' pay, nothing. The entire operation took about 90 seconds. By the time I walked into the living room to get a slice of pie, Emily had officially left my company. Her access to our systems was automatically revoked. Her next direct deposit, due the following Friday, had been canceled. I sat down with my slice of pumpkin pie and listened to Emily continue to rant about how overrated I was. She'd moved on to criticizing my house, claiming it was too modest for someone with my alleged income. Clearly, I was either lying about my income or too ignorant to know how to spend money wisely. One or the other. I just nodded and ate my pie. I didn't say a word about what I'd just done. Why should I? She'd find out soon enough. The rest of Thanksgiving was actually lovely. Emily eventually moved on to other topics. We watched football. My dad fell asleep in his recliner. Standard family holiday stuff. When Emily left that evening, she hugged Mom and Dad, said goodbye to everyone. She didn't even glance my way. I went home that night and had the best sleep I'd had in months. There was no regret, no second guessing, just a profound sense of satisfaction that I had finally made the decision I should have made months ago. Friday morning, I arrived at the office early. Sophia was already there. She always is. I called her into my office and told her Emily was no longer with the company. Sophia's face showed a mix of relief and apprehension. She asked if I was okay. I told her I was, that it was overdue, and we'd have to redistribute Emily's tasks until we found a replacement. Sophia nodded. I'll handle it, she said. And for what it's worth, you made the right call. She wasn't a good fit here. I know, I replied. I should have done it sooner. We sent a quick email to the team that morning. Emily Turner is no longer with the firm, effective immediately. Her tasks have been reallocated. All clients should be routed to Sophia for coordination until further notice. Professional, to the point. Several employees stopped by my office during the day. Nobody asked what happened. They all knew. They had watched Emily coast for months while they did the actual work. A few people even commended me for finally addressing the issue. That stung a little, knowing my staff had been silently frustrated for so long because I'd let family loyalty cloud my judgment. Emily's direct deposit should have hit the following Friday. Around 2 p.m., my phone started blowing up. Emily's first text, "Hey, my paycheck didn't deposit. Can you check with payroll?" I didn't reply. I was in a meeting with a client. Second text, 10 minutes later. "Seriously, where's my paycheck? This is ridiculous." Third text, 5 minutes later. "I need that money today. I have bills to pay. Fix this now." Then she called. I declined. She called again, declined again. Then my office phone rang. Sophia picked it up, listened for a minute, then poked her head into my office. "Emily's on the line," Sophia said, evidently trying not to smile. "She's very upset about her paycheck. Tell her to check her email," I replied calmly. "She should have received a termination notification last week." Sophia went back to her desk. I overheard her relay that message. Then I heard Emily's voice, loud enough for me to make out words, even over Sophia's phone. Sophia muttered something else and hung up. "She says she never got any email," Sophia reported. "And she's demanding to speak with you. Did you confirm the termination email was sent?" I asked. Sophia checked her computer. "Sent Friday at 8 a.m. to her company email. She probably hasn't checked it since Thanksgiving." Of course, she hadn't. Emily viewed checking her work email as optional. Another reason she performed so poorly. If she calls back, tell her to check her company email for all relevant information regarding her termination, I instructed. And if she continues to harass our office line, we'll need to block her number. Emily called back 3 more times. Sophia repeatedly gave her the same message and eventually blocked her number. Then Emily started messaging me directly. The texts grew progressively angrier. "You fired me? Are you kidding me right now? You can't just fire me without warning. That's illegal. Mom is going to hear about this. Dad too. You're going to regret this. I can't believe you do this to your own sister. You're a terrible person. This is because I told the truth about you at Thanksgiving, isn't it? You're that petty. You owe me that paycheck. I worked for that money." I replied to just one text. "You received your final paycheck for all hours worked up to your termination date on November 25th. Any questions about your termination should be directed to HR." Then I silenced the conversation. She tried to call my personal phone. I didn't answer. She called my office directly. Sophia intercepted her. She even showed up at my office on Monday morning, but our building is secured and requires a key card to enter the lobby. Security called and asked if I was expecting an Emily Turner. I said no, she no longer worked here, so they should ask her to leave. They did. The real fireworks began when she called my parents. My mother called me that Monday evening just as I was leaving the office. She sounded distraught. "What's this about you firing Emily?" she demanded. "No, hello. No, how are you?" Just straight to the accusation. "It's true," I said. "And you fired her last Friday without even talking to her first?" "Without any warning. She had multiple warnings, Mom. Written documentation, performance improvement plans. I've been trying to work with her for months. She chose not to improve." "But she's your sister," my mother protested. "And she was my employee, a bad employee. I gave her more chances than I would have given anyone else specifically because she's my sister, but I can't run a business on family sentiment." My mother was quiet for a bit. Then she said, "Emily says you fired her because she said you got lucky at Thanksgiving. She thinks you're just being petty and vindictive." I actually chuckled. "Mom, I fired her because she was bad at her job. She consistently showed up late, ignored client emails, created problems for my team, and cost me a major contract because she couldn't be bothered to do basic tasks. The Thanksgiving comment had nothing to do with it. She says you did it on your phone right there at dinner, my mother pressed. I processed her termination on Thanksgiving, yes. But the decision was made weeks ago. I was planning to fire her that following Monday anyway. Her little speech just moved up the timeline. You should have talked to her first, given her another chance. I gave her 6 months of chances, Mom. How many more did you want me to give her? My mother sighed. She's really struggling now. She doesn't have a job. She's behind on rent. She needs help. Then she should have thought about that before she decided to coast at the one job where someone actually gave her a real opportunity, I stated, more strongly than I usually did with my mother. She's family, and I'm not her personal ATM. I helped her by giving her a good job with good pay. She threw that away. Those are the consequences of her own choices. My mother didn't like that response. She tried the guilt trip tactic, saying Emily was my younger sister and I should want to help her. I listened patiently, then told her I had to go. She wasn't pleased, but she let me hang up. My father called the next day. He was even more direct. You need to give Emily her job back, he said, no preamble. No, I don't, I replied. She's your sister. You can't just abandon her like this. I'm not abandoning her. I'm holding her accountable for her work performance. There's a difference. But she made one comment at Thanksgiving, and you ruined her life over it. Dad, I kept detailed records of every performance issue, every late arrival, every missed deadline, every client complaint. This has nothing to do with Thanksgiving and everything to do with 6 months of documented poor performance. Ask her about the $2.5 million client. She almost lost us because she couldn't be bothered to respond to an email. My father went silent. What client? I explained the situation. Emily had ignored multiple emails from a massive client, and I had to personally intervene to save the deal. How that was just one of many problems. She never mentioned that, my father said softly. Of course, she didn't, I responded, because that would require her to take responsibility for her actions instead of blaming everyone else. My father stayed quiet for a long time. Then he said, your mother is very upset about this. I'm sorry she's upset, but I made the right business decision. Emily was a liability to my company. I couldn't keep her on staff just because we shared DNA. Family is supposed to support each other. I did support her, Dad. I gave her a job she wasn't qualified for. I paid her more than market rate. I gave her chance after chance to improve. At some point, support becomes enabling. I'm not going to enable her to coast through life expecting other people to carry her. My father didn't say much to that. He just told me to think about what I was doing before hanging up. Emily tried many more times to get me to rehire her, or at least offer severance. She wrote me lengthy text messages about how unjust I was being, how I had never understood her, how everyone expected her to be like me, but she couldn't live up to it, how I was successful because I'd had advantages she didn't have. I didn't reply to any of it. There was nothing to say. She had constructed a story in which she was the victim and I was the villain, and nothing I said could change it. People believe anything they choose to believe. About 2 weeks after I dismissed her, my mother called again. She sounded exhausted. I just want you to know that your father and I loaned Emily money for her rent, she said. She's looking for a new job, but it's taking time. Okay, I replied. We're disappointed in how you've handled this situation. That's your right, Mom. But I stand by my decision. She's your sister. You should have helped her. I did help her for 6 months. I helped her. She chose not to help herself. My mother sighed. I don't think you understand how hard things are for her right now. I understand perfectly well. I also understand that she created this situation for herself. I'm sorry she's struggling, but those are the natural consequences of her choices. You've become very hard, my mother observed gently. No, Mom. I've just learned that helping people who don't want to help themselves doesn't actually help them. It just enables them to keep making bad choices. We didn't talk for a while after that call. My parents were upset with me. Emily was telling everyone who would listen that I'd betrayed her. My aunt apparently thought I was being too harsh. My uncle thought I'd done the right thing, but wasn't going to say so publicly because he didn't want to deal with my mom's reaction. But you know what? My business ran better without Emily there. Sophia hired a replacement within 4 weeks, a recent college grad named Rachel who actually showed up on time, responded to emails, and treated her job with respect. Client communication improved dramatically. My team's morale increased. Everything just worked better. About a month later, I got a text from Emily. It was different from her usual furious messages. Got a new job. Starts Monday. Just wanted you to know I'm fine. I texted back, glad to hear it. Good luck with the new position. She didn't reply. I didn't expect her to. That was probably our last direct communication for a while, perhaps forever. Some bridges burned and remained burnt. My parents gradually started talking to me again, but things were definitely strained. Mom would call from time to time, and we'd talk about nothing in particular. Dad sent me an article on a solar project he'd read about. Small attempts toward normalcy, yet the underlying tension remained. They had made it clear they believed I was wrong. I made it clear that I didn't care. Christmas was awkward as heck. We all gathered at my parents' place, because that's what you do. Emily was there with David. We didn't talk directly to each other. She spent the entire time on her phone or in quiet conversation with David. I spent time with my cousins and avoided the living room where Emily was stationed. At one point, my father tried to force a conversation between us. He asked, "Why don't you two talk and work this out?" As if we were kids arguing over a toy. Emily glared at me with cold eyes. I returned the stare with the same indifferent expression. Neither of us said anything. My father gave up and went back to watching football. Things became more interesting shortly after New Year's. Emily evidently told David her entire warped version of the story, how I dismissed her out of jealousy and vengeance, how I couldn't take her speaking the truth about my accomplishment, how I was a nasty person who abandoned my family. David, being the brilliant thinker that he is, decided to help Emily exact retribution. He created a fake Google review for my company. 1 star. Claimed we duped his company out of $50,000 and never delivered on our promises. Said we were scammers running a phony enterprise. He even created a fictitious business name to try and make it seem real. The problem with David's plan was that I had Google Alerts set up for my company's name. I saw the review within an hour of it being posted. I also saw that the account that posted it was created on the same day and had only posted 1 review, which told me this wasn't some complex operation. I took screenshots, documented everything, and reported the review to Google as false. It was deleted within 48 hours. Then I had my attorney send David a cease and desist letter for defamation and attempted harm to my company's reputation. The letter threatened possible legal action if he continued. Emily called me 2 days later, screaming that I was going to sue her boyfriend. I gently reminded her that if her partner intended to commit actionable defamation, he should be prepared to face the consequences. Then I hung up. David seemed to back off after that. No more fake reviews or attempts at retribution. Turns out, threatening people with serious legal penalties makes them reassess their activities. In February, my mother called with some news. Emily was evicted from her apartment. She'd been staying with David, but their relationship had crumbled following the legal threat. She was now asking to move back in with our parents. My mother wondered if I would rethink employing Emily again. I said no. She asked if I would at least lend Emily money for a deposit. I said no again. She said I was being unkind. I told her that Emily had squandered every chance, humiliated me publicly, and had her boyfriend attempt to damage my business. At what point did Emily become accountable for her own situation? My mother didn't have an answer. Emily, at 28 years old, moved back home. But March provided the most satisfying results. Remember that important client Emily almost lost us because she ignored their emails? The $2.5 million contract I had barely saved? They came back with an expansion idea. They were so pleased with our work on their first 5 buildings that they asked us to manage another 12 properties. This deal was expected to be worth around $6 million over 3 years. During the contract signing meeting, the client's VP expressed his satisfaction with our communication improvements over the previous months. He notably appreciated our new client services coordinator for her responsiveness and professionalism. They said it was a 180-degree difference from their last encounter with us. I thanked him and simply mentioned that we had made some staff adjustments to better serve our customers. He nodded approvingly and commented that it showed. That arrangement placed us on track to generate more than $13 million in income this year. We were growing quicker than I had ever anticipated. I hired 3 extra people, including a second project manager to handle the increasing burden. Business was thriving. My mother informed me that Emily was once again working at a department store, earning minimum wage plus commission. She was still living at home, whining about how unfair life was and blaming everyone but herself. My parents stopped asking me to help her. I think they finally understood that no amount of money or opportunity would solve Emily's basic condition. She just didn't want to put in the work. In April, I received a message on LinkedIn from someone who used to work with Emily. He said Emily was telling people she had quit my firm because I was handling it unethically. She claimed she departed on principle, not because she was fired. I shared a professional update on LinkedIn regarding our company's expansion and the necessity of upholding excellent standards. I didn't mention Emily's name, but everyone familiar with the issue understood. Following that post, 2 former coworkers reached out. Both stated that they had heard tales from Emily and were relieved to discover that we were genuinely prospering. Her attempts to harm my reputation had utterly failed. People in the industry speak, and when they witnessed my company's true success, it just made her appear bitter and untrustworthy. By summer, everything had settled into a new routine. My firm had 35 employees and an anticipated yearly revenue of more than $16 million. We moved to a larger office. I finally awarded myself a raise and purchased a newer car, still a Honda, but less beat up. My parents and I had achieved a peaceful settlement. We occasionally discussed neutral issues. They had ceased justifying Emily's actions, partly because they could no longer ignore the trend. My father actually apologized to me in June, said he understood why I made the decision I did. That mattered more than he understood. Emily was still living at home and working between jobs. Last I heard, she'd been fired from the department store for being late too often. She'd moved on to work at a call center. My mother stopped providing me updates until I directly asked for them. In August, I saw David at a gas station. We made eye contact. He glanced aside quickly and dashed to his car. I simply smiled and went about my day. Some fights are inevitable victories. The best part, though, happened in September. We received a significant industry award for innovative renewable energy consultancy. A ceremony was held, a trophy was awarded, and various trade journals covered the event. My crew was ecstatic. Sophia cried happy tears. It was a beautiful validation of all we had built. The awards ceremony was held on a Thursday evening. The article was published Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, my phone was flooded with congratulatory messages from colleagues, old coworkers, and even some family members. My mother called that evening. She had seen the article. She stated she was proud of me. Then she said something that really astonished me. Emily saw the article, too, she said, her voice softer than I'd heard it in ages. She didn't say anything, but I could see it on her face. I think she finally understands what she gave up. I did not reply to that. There was nothing to say. Emily had made her decisions. I had made mine. And the outcomes, well, they spoke for themselves.